In this talk, we're going to learn about the general features of kingdom Animalia. The organisms that belong to the kingdom Animalia evolved from animal-like protists that are also called as protozoa. These include ciliates like Paramecium, flagellates like Giardia, and protists that have pseudopodia like amoeba. Scientists have found that the choanoflagellates, which are a member of the kingdom of Protista, are the closest relative to animals, and hence it is thought that animals evolved from choanoflagellates. The earliest animals that evolved were sponges, and when we look at the structure of a sponge and its composition, they have specialized cells which are very similar to choanoflagellates and are called as choanocytes. The organisms that belong to the kingdom of Animalia can also be classified into the clade of metazoa. These include organisms that are multicellular, eukaryotic heterotrophs that have specialized cells that can differentiate to form tissues. Heterotrophs are organisms that obtain energy and organic molecules by feeding on other organisms. They are different from plants and some protists that are autotrophs, which means that they are able to synthesize organic molecules on their own and thus do not have to feed on others. Organisms that belong to kingdom Animalia are multicellular eukaryotic organisms. Thus, they are made up of cells that have membrane-bound organelles. However, they do not have a cell wall. When we compare this with cells in other kingdoms, for example, bacteria or fungi or plants, in all of these cases, the cells do have a cell wall. There are also some protists that also have a cell wall, but we do have other types of protists that do not have a cell wall. However, most organisms present in kingdom Protista tend to be unicellular. When we look at the classification of animals, kingdom Animalia comes under the domain of Eukarya. Animals have been classified based on their anatomical features as well as embryonic developmental patterns. And based on these, the animals are grouped into a variety of phyla. More than 35 phyla have been identified, but most animals can be found in around 10 phyla as shown. Of all these phyla, with the exception of Chordata, which includes vertebrates, all other phyla include invertebrate animals. Let us look at some common features of animals, and the first one we're going to look at is reproduction. All animals show sexual reproduction as the main mode of reproduction, and in this case, haploid gametes fuse to form a diploid zygote. Animals do not show alternation of generations, which is observed in plants where there is a diploid sporophyte stage and a haploid gametophyte stage. In the case of animals, the diploid organism directly is able to make haploid gametes that are used for sexual reproduction. The male gamete is smaller and motile, as shown in this figure, where we're able to see an intact male gamete but only a partial female gamete. And thus the female gamete is larger and non-motile. Male gametes are normally called as sperms, while female gametes are called as eggs. Another feature of animals is the presence of tissues. All animals have tissues, which are a collection of cells that have a specialized function. These tissues arise from germ layers in almost all animals, except for the phylum of Porifera. To look at how these germ layers are formed, let us just look at basic development of animals. We're going to start with the fertilization stage, where the gametes fuse to form a diploid zygote. Once the zygote is formed, the process of cleavage begins, where the zygote undergoes many rounds of mitosis to form a blastula. This blastula then undergoes gastrulation, where the cells undergo movement and eventually will give rise to the germ layers. Some organisms form 2 germ layers and hence are called diploblasts, while many other animals can form 3 germ layers and hence are called triploblasts. The 3 germ layers formed are the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, while when only 2 germ layers are formed, in that case, it's only the ectoderm and the endoderm. Once the germ layers are formed, they can undergo changes to form tissues and ultimately organs in the process of organogenesis. Once organogenesis is complete, the organism is born. The organism that is born can undergo metamorphosis in certain animals, and in such stages, the organism is in the form of a larva that undergoes dramatic changes during metamorphosis. Once metamorphosis is complete, the adult organism is formed, and this adult organism attains sexual maturity, where through the process of gametogenesis, it is able to form gametes. Once the gametes are formed, sexual reproduction can occur where the gametes fuse and fertilization occurs to form a diploid zygote. Thus, tissues are formed when germ layers are formed in the case of animals. The ability of cells to come together to form tissues was a key innovation event and thus allowed the formation of many different species of animals. Now, tissues are the basic building block of organs, and the many organs come together to form organ systems. These organ systems work together in the organism, and thus tissue formation is an important step in animal development. Another feature prevalent in animals is movement. While some animals are sedentary or stationary and thus do not move, there are many others that are mobile and demonstrate active movement. This mobility was also a key innovation because it allowed animals to move into different ecological niches and undergo speciation and diversification. When it comes to movement in animals, it involves complex mechanisms that utilizes specialized tissues and systems like muscles and the nervous system. This is different than what is observed in unicellular motile organisms like bacteria and protists that utilize appendages or specialized structures like flagella. The ability of animals to form tissues and organs allowed many different types of animals to form, and thus there is a good amount of diversity in the physical characteristics of animals. The diversity arises from the basic body plans found in animals, which are a set of morphological and developmental traits. Some features of a body plan include symmetry, segmentation, and body cavity. Body symmetry is the ability to divide an organism's body into similar parts through an imaginary axis. When we look at the types of body symmetry, one of them is where there is no symmetry at all and where the body thus is asymmetrical. This is observed in members of the phylum Porifera, which includes sponges. On the other hand, another type of body symmetry is radial symmetry. In this case, there is a central axis that passes through these animals as shown in the figure, and any longitudinal plane that passes through this central axis is able to divide the body of the organism into left and right mirror images. It should be noted that there can be many such longitudinal planes that, as long as they pass through the central axis, they will be able to divide the animal's body into left and right mirror images. Radial symmetry is observed in animals that belong to different phyla like Cnidaria and Ctenophora. Animals that show radial symmetry are usually sessile in that they don't move. If they do have the ability to move like jellyfish, they tend to be weak swimmers. Almost all organisms showing radial symmetry tend to be marine animals. The radial symmetry allows these animals to sense their environment from all sides and thus adapt efficiently. Another type of body symmetry is bilateral symmetry. In this case, there is a single imaginary axis that is able to divide the body of the animal into left and right mirror image halves. Bilateral symmetry is seen in most animals, and these animals show active movement. They tend to have a nervous system and sensory structures at the anterior end, which aids in coordinated movement of the animals. Another type of body plan observed in animals is a segmented body. This is when the body is constructed of many linear series of repeating parts that may have a specialized function. Now, these parts are usually formed early in development, and they are able to form from the anterior or the head end to the posterior or the tail end. Body segmentation was a key innovation event that allowed different animals to form a variety of body types. Body segmentation has been studied extensively in the phylum of Annelida, Arthropoda, and Chordata. In the case of Annelida, each body segment has its own set of organs, and thus if there is damage to one or two of these body segments, it's not fatal to the organism, and the organism is still able to survive and function appropriately. Arthropods also show segmented bodies, and in some cases, these body segments are fused. The presence of these body segments help in locomotion and movement of the organism. Chordates do show body segmentation during embryonic development in the form of the formation of somites. It should be noted, however, that in the adult organism, the segments are not that apparent in the case of chordates. However, the segmentation process is important for the overall development of the organism. Another body plan that is observed in animals is a body cavity that is also called as a coelom, which is another key innovation event. The body cavity or coelom is a space between the body wall and the internal organs. If we look at the figure, we are able to see the different digestive organs present in a human. And these digestive organs are present in a space which is the body cavity. The body cavity or coelom provides support to the internal organs and allows these organs to develop independently of the body wall. Hence, we call this as a key innovation because the presence of a body cavity allowed different types of internal structures to form in different animals. body cavities or coeloms are found only in triploblasts, which are animals that give rise to 3 germ layers during their development. It is not observed in diploblasts, which are organisms that form 2 germ layers during their development. Depending on the germ layer that lines the coelom, organisms can be classified into different groups. The first group we're going to look at are called as coelomates. In these animals, the body cavity or the coelom is covered on all sides by the mesodermal germ layer. And thus we are able to see that throughout the body cavity, on any portion, we are seeing tissues that are mesodermal in origin. Such organisms are called coelomates. The second type of organism we're going to look at are the pseudocoelomates. In this case, the organisms do have a body cavity, and this body cavity is called as a pseudocoelom. The pseudocoelom has this name because the coelom is covered by the mesoderm on one side and on the endoderm on the other side. The third type of organisms that we're going to look at are acoelomates. Acoelomates are organisms that do not have a coelom, and thus there is no space that is found between the endoderm and the mesoderm. With this, we come to the end of our talk, where we learned that kingdom Animalia evolved from protists like choanoflagellates. We also learned different characteristics of organisms that are present in kingdom Animalia, which includes that they are multicellular, eukaryotic, heterotrophic organisms. We learned about different features of animals, as well as body plans of animals, which included body symmetry, body segmentation, and body cavity.